I left school at 15 in 1954 and I started work as an apprentice electrician. Sheffield at that time was very industrialised, and smoke and filth, grime and soot had accumulated on walls and ceilings, and the air wasn't clean. In mid-60s, Sheffield then was going into a clean air zone. Schools, churches, hospitals were all going from coal boilers to fitting oil burners. Boiler houses were full of asbestos. And when you went in to change boilers over to gas or oil, obviously they stripped outer covering up boilers. Pipes were all lined with asbestos. It had hang lumps of asbestos lagging. And you could see it was just flaking about. You got it on your clothes, you were dusting it off, and it was just like snow. But then when you were putting it back, the heating engineers, they were mixing it like they mix plaster in a bucket, plasters. To mixing it with a stick and then putting it on with their hands. And you went home, it were on your clothes, but you took them off and shook them, and that was it. I did that for about 3 years at different schools, churches, hospitals. You take a panel off to get more cables into fuse boards. And fuse boards also had asbestos things in them. Well, obviously you wouldn't have done it if you know what you were like. I worked on this job contracting till about 1982, and a lad who'd been my apprentice worked at council. And he says, there's a supervisor's job going at council. Do you fancy it? Anyway, I got jobs, it happens. Then they started having lectures and films about asbestos and what it could lead to and why to be careful using it. It also said on this film, small asbestos particles get in your lungs. It could stop there for 40, 50, 60 years before it would affect you. And I thought, wow, I've got that. Must have. The amount it were like. But I didn't think no more of it because I didn't feel any different. And that was it. And then I went on job one day and we had this lad working on the heating section who came as an apprentice to his father when we were doing changeovers in the 60s. And I said to him, how's your dad going on? He says, oh, he's died with asbestosis. I said, what about Ken? Worked between them both. And he says, oh, he died and all of it. I says, well, don't give me much chance like laughing. But it makes you think, doesn't it? That was it, and I retired in 2003, I was 64, and enjoyed my retirement, and never had any problems till about, I think it was 2015, 16, I started with this cough. I went to the doctors, and I went for x-ray, and he says, we've had results, you've got a shadow on your lung. He says, but it's all right, I think, you're okay. I thought, is it asbestos? But he didn't mention it, and so I just carried on, and everything was fine, up to about 2019. So I went for a scan, and then it come back that I got pleural plaques, and it was probably asbestosis. I weren't all that surprised. I thought, well, it's finally got me like. I spoke to a doctor, a professor at Northern. He says, well, send a letter to your doctors, and you'll get a copy. And I did, and it said I was first diagnosed in 2015-16. And I didn't know about it then. Nobody told me then. I knew that. I can remember having x-rays. But then my wife said, what difference does it make now? You've had it all that time. It hasn't affected us, has it? Look what we've done in that 4 or 5 years. Better know it not knowing like, aren't we? Because it hasn't affected us until it really got hold of me in 2019. We accepted it, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we said at 84, it's not going to go away. There's no cure for it. Just carry on as best we can. I mean, how long are you going to live for? When you get to 80 yards, you're going to go sometime. There's one thing about, living with asbestos since when I know I got it in the 60s, till I'm in my 80s, and knowing about other lads, I think I've got away with it, and done well to keep going. We've learned to accept it. Only thing that, bothers me is that wife will cope when I've gone, if I go first. But we've got good families and, 2 daughters and granddaughters, grandson and that, and friends. And we'll be all right. Like I say, keep going and make best of what you've got. I just hope that what I've gone through, things will be better in future for other people. Really, asbestos has got to be banned.